Hey guys, Toby Mathis here, and you're listening to the Anderson Business Advisors podcast. And this is just another conversation that I'm having with one of our attorneys, Lauren Robbins, who focuses in the area of business planning and all that. So first off, welcome, Lauren.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Toby.
And you get the joyous task of talking about tax evasion and the 89,000 new agents that are set there all armed and ready to take us
Yeah.
to task, but only if you make over 400,000, right?
Yeah, that's what they say. Wink, wink.
Yeah, we'll get into all that. So, so I want to hit on a few topics. The kind of laying the land for people as to the division of the IRS is to, because there's different portions. There's civil and there's criminal, obviously, and where this 89,000 agent comes into play, and whether somebody really has to worry. And then if you're rich, do you really need to worry? Like, are they really lining them out in the street and auditing the crap out of them, or is this more just politicking? So you can dive into those at your leisure. Which ones do you want to hit first?
Well, let's talk about that last point. What's actually going to happen? What's real, and what is just the politics?
Mm-hmm.
What's the fluff?
Tell us.
So ultimately, this is really it seems like a partisan issue, right?
Mm-hmm.
It seems like the left is coming in and Biden's saying, all right, we're going to crack down on those millionaires that aren't paying their fair share of taxes. That's what the media is telling you. That's what everyone's freaking out about. But is that really what's going to happen? I don't think so. Just with the workforce that the IRS has currently, I don't see that happening. And their audit rates for the very rich, they might go up a little bit just compared to the almost zero that it is now. Yeah, it'll increase a little bit, but all in all, it's a lot of hot air. It doesn't really seem like the IRS has the workforce to be backing up a claim like this. But
let's hit on this. What's happened to the IRS workforce in the last 10 years?
people have been, well, one, they've been dropping like flies left and right. And two, just the IRS has been defunded and understaffed since 2010. So they aren't getting enough funding. And so the people that they have that are doing the audits don't have the right training, or just really they're overwhelmed with work. They don't have enough accountants and lawyers to be doing what they're supposed to be doing right now.
So realistically, this shouldn't be a partisan issue. We should all be saying,
oh yeah,
hey, this agency that we have that's tasked with enforcing our laws and making sure people comply fairly with the law, so you don't have one person paying nothing because they've decided to thumb their nose to it, and somebody else who's paying, having money taken out of their paycheck. Everybody's treated fairly. We should all agree that it would be good if that agency was efficient and was able to handle the workload that it has. But it got demonized. I saw people talking about armed agents, and there's 89,000, an army of agents that be suck on the conservatives, and I don't think that's the truth. I think the actual budget numbers show that a lot of that money is going to customer service, which is picking up. It's just getting better with the IRS. They're actually answering their phones now. It used to be like 1 out of 15 calls got answered. It was a train wreck.
Yeah.
But what are you seeing? Because you deal with this on a day-to-day basis. What are you seeing?
So, I mean, I'm seeing that overall this announcement is creating a lot of fear in people, but I mean, we need to take a look at what this really means. I mean, yeah, they're going to hire 80-something thousand, but that's over the next decade at least.
It's not at once. They're not hiring 89,000 this year. That's not the and
that's not possible.
And they gave us kind of a schedule, right? Is that what you're using? It's over a decade.
Yeah. So according to the IRS website, when they were going into a bit more detail on these announcements and what this rollout really means, then they were saying this is over the next 10 years that we're looking to hire this many people. So if you want to do a little bit of math there, that's what, 8,000 to 9,000 a year-ish, maybe.
it's almost enough to replace the people that are leaving, because I don't know what the number is.
Exactly.
I should Google that
So,
just and look it up.
yeah. So, and a lot of what they're wanting to do is take a lot of the funding to improve taxpayer services. So, um, improving the online features that are available, the response times, actually picking up the phones, and also working on creating more taxpayer assistance centers that are in lower income areas so that they can help people file their taxes, which
Mhm.
for people that don't have a ton of education or experience with filing their taxes, that could be a helpful thing.
Yeah, I'm looking at some of these. Like it's been dropping for a number of years, but
Mm-hmm.
yeah, you're going from over 85,000 agents. We dropped down below 75. Like they just over a period of it looks like 8 years.
Yeah,
So you're losing people pretty quick. It's not. I guess this would replenish some of that and maybe give them some more, but I don't think
yeah,
it's certainly not. Hey, here we go. It's all going to come on board.
yeah. It's not like they have. Yeah, they don't have an army of armed CPAs and attorneys raring to go that are going to come knocking on your door. That's not what's going to happen. They're claiming that they're going to be focusing more than they have been on people that are wealthy, that have either not been paying at all, so not filing at all, um,
Mhm.
or people that are.
Should.
Hmm,
They absolutely should. They actually
yeah,
should be coming after folks that aren't filing. I know that there's a couple of things. They're cracking down on people that are playing the Puerto Rican game, and there's
yes,
people that legitimately move to Puerto Rico and meet Act 60, I think is what it is, where they're
mm-hmm.
establishing a Puerto Rican qualified entity, and then they get tax benefits as a result if they're doing business with particular
Yeah, and
services.
if they meet all the requirements and they're there in Puerto Rico and they're actually if they're so if you're actually doing business in Puerto Rico, you're fine,
Mhm.
no issues. If you're doing it fraudulently or you're claiming to be in Puerto Rico or doing business there and you're not, that's when you have something to worry about.
Yeah, well, there's a bunch of folks that they've already nabbed. I think they audited 100 of them this
Mm-hmm.
year, and yeah, then some of them get criminal referrals. So we'll talk about that in a second. I'm looking here. So the Federal News Network said that
Mm-hmm.
52,000 IRS employees are expected to retire within the next 6 years. So if we can just do simple math, the
Oh yeah,
agency,
that's.
yeah, you have maybe 80,000 employees in the whole place. Like you're losing
Mm-hmm.
people, and it was, I believe, and I'm just going off the top of my head, I believe that we were up over 115,000 employees at one time.
Yeah.
Yes, you can be more efficient, but a lot of the investment needs to be made in their computers. I think they're still using COBOL from like the 80s as
Yes.
their system. It's like it's this
Yeah,
horrible. Let's let,
it's
let's jump that.
laughable.
Yeah, let's get them some new computers. Maybe I don't know.
Yeah. So, and absolutely, well, yeah, and if we're looking at the number of people that are going to be retiring is in 50 something thousand, and they're
Right.
planning on hiring 80 something thousand over the next decade, they're barely replacing the staff that's retiring. So,
Yeah,
yeah,
definitely the audit. Yeah, like we saw when the staff rate drops, the audit rate drops.
yeah, because there's
Um,
not enough people to do
Yep,
the
they're not
audit.
enough people. And what happens is the audits are done kind of half cocked, and we actually do, all of us as Americans. Like I'm not a big fan of a big brother or beating on people unfairly, but there are folks out there that take unreasonable positions and just flat out lie or just don't file taxes, and
Yeah,
those people should be held to account. But then there's the other side. Let's talk about the other side.
yeah.
What is the difference between civil enforcement and criminal enforcement?
I mean, civil enforcement is really just you'll be paying a fine
Yeah.
ultimately. If you're convicted of criminal tax evasion, then you're looking at some potential prison time and a fine. But again, unless you're doing some serious Al Capone stuff, that's not something that you know everyone needs to be worried about.
the way I always think about it is, Justice Rehnquist once said that there's nothing wrong with a strategy to avoid taxes,
Yeah.
which is, yeah. So there's the tax code. Probably 10% of it is here's the taxes you have to pay, and then the rest of it is 90% is how do you avoid it.
Mm-hmm.
Here's circumstances in which you can avoid it. It's like, hey, you have to pay tax on all your money, but here's a standard deduction, and here's things that you can write off under certain circumstances. You get
Yep.
state and local tax, deduction. You have some medical deduction. Here's HSAs, IRAs, 401ks.
Mm-hmm.
Here's a whole bunch of things that you can use to reduce it, or charitable donations. There's other
Yeah.
things built into the code. Okay, so avoidance is okay.
Yep.
Evasion is when you know you owe a tax and then you just flat out lie,
Yeah.
like write a deduction that didn't occur,
Mm-hmm.
right? And
Yep.
where you see people get in trouble is when they don't think their tax is fair and they take matters in their own hands, and instead of looking at the code for incentives or taking legitimate expenses, they think it's unfair that they're paying tax, and then they concoct things. They do like the Enron, where they start creating
Yeah.
fictitious business that don't exist and start writing things off, or they just flat out say, you know what, I'm not going to file it. You can come get me at some point.
Yeah.
And those folks may get the criminal referral. A lot of folks don't realize that once civil sees
Mm-hmm.
evidence of a crime, they're going to refer it over to CID, and CID is going to take it from there. Now, CID, those guys do have guns, right? That's
Yes.
criminal enforcement, because you said Al Capone. These are the guys
Yes.
dealing with bad
Yes. Mm-hmm.
right? If you end up dealing with them, don't move. Right?
Yeah.
Get your lawyer.
Don't
Just
resist. Get a lawyer. Mm-hmm.
yeah, take
Yeah.
take. Don't try to tuck your way out of it.
Mm-mm.
Um,
Yeah.
what
One.
else is going on in that world? So what is the IRS communicating to folks? What are you hearing? What are the stress points that you're hearing from clients, especially?
So, I mean, the stress point that I'm hearing from clients is, oh, I'm afraid to try and do the 280A method, trying to do that because I'm afraid that they'll uh, say that that wasn't real and I'll get a penalty. Okay.
Mhm.
All right. Valid. That's a valid concern. But one, are they even going to be looking at someone like you? Let's look overall at what your income and deductions, what all of that looks like. And also just have the documentation to show that you did have a meeting at your home for your business that you and maybe your spouse are involved in. Just have your meeting minutes, have invoices.
Yeah.
Just if everything's running as it's supposed to, if it's running like a real business, you have nothing to worry about. Because even if there was an audit, you have all of your evidence to show.
And so what you have is a level of comfort with the aggressiveness that they're going to display. So like if they have a
Yeah.
business, they don't understand, hey, I can reimburse myself for certain things, for example. A lot of people will
Yeah.
just say, I don't feel comfortable reimbursing my phone, even though I'm using it for my business, because I only use it partially for my business.
Mm-hmm.
And they can't get over the mental leap that, yeah, there's a distinction when you have an accountable plan or something that you can write these things off. 280A is just called the Augusta exclusion, but it's,
Yeah.
hey, if I could pay somebody else to do something, chances are I can pay myself for it, so
Yeah.
long as it's arm's length and it's of equal or greater value. Just getting over that little mental hurdle, but it's like, but I'm negotiating with myself. I know that's why you use fair market value,
Yeah.
and you go out there and get quotes from somebody else. Yes, you're allowed to do this. The IRS has already established that you can. In fact, IRS doesn't even write the laws; they just enforce it.
Yeah.
And there's already law on this, so it's not even up for debate. But somebody will say, "It just seems like I'm getting too good of a deal." I get it.
Like, all right,
Yeah.
that and we're wary of things that seem too good to be true, but I mean, if you're just looking at what the tax code allows for and it
Mhm.
allows you to do that, do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I just had a client this morning. It was a defined benefit plan where they were able to put the range from the actuary was between $300,000 to $400,000,
Hmm.
and they were looking to shelter 200 grand, and they were like,
Yeah.
they couldn't believe that actually existed. And you were saying, no, this is actually, you're gonna pay tax on it. See, here's the thing: is a lot of these
Yeah.
incentives are there. Somebody is getting a benefit. And the IRS always, or the Congress, when they write these laws, is kind of the idea that, hey, if we don't take too much from people, there'll be more to take later.
Yep.
Right. So in the case of retirement plans, a lot of times the government collects even more taxes because you're deferring it. And now they're going to tax the growth and the deferral at some point in the future at your ordinary rate.
Yep.
They're just willing to say, hey, you know what, just keep it for now. That's what
Yeah.
they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, there's some funky little things out there that people don't realize are incentives. And just because you weren't aware of it doesn't make it illegal. It just
Yep.
means you weren't aware of it. And there's a lot of incentives that are rolling around out there that will benefit you. What else are you seeing and hearing from people? Because every time there's an article written or people are like, hey, the IRS is going to go after people making $400,000 and above, and all of a sudden you're like, I make $400,000 and above. Do you
Yeah.
feel, are they expressing anxiety? Do they feel like there's a bullseye on their back?
Yeah, a lot. I mean, a lot of clients have been expressing that they're worried that they're going to see an increase in audits, or they'll get audited multiple years in a row or something really crazy like that. And it's, just looking at the logistics and at the numbers, the IRS doesn't have the manpower to even do that. And they're not going to. I mean, they're going to really, the audit rates are still going to be proportional, but it's just going to be a slight increase.
You just said something really important, Lauren, when you said proportional, because this is the game they keep playing, is that with the 89,000 agents and your audit rates proportionally is not going to go up. They always sneak in that proportionally.
Hmm.
Well, okay, so let's just look at the numbers. Syracuse University does a study every year, and I think it
Yeah.
was 13.2 out of 1,000 returns get audited for poor folks, and
Hmm.
2.2 out of 1,000 get audited for wealthy folks. And they're saying
Yes.
the proportionality is not going to change. It doesn't change the fact that the poor get audited way more than the rich,
Hmm.
probably because they can't defend themselves or
Yep.
they
They
can't hire a
can't hire.
lawyer.
Yeah, they can't hire attorneys to defend them in an audit, so they just pay up.
So proportionately, that's not changing. So whenever
Yep.
they say things like, "Oh, we're going after the rich so that they pay their fair share," what they're saying is, we're going to actually fund this division, but let's be real, the people they audit, the highest audit rates are still the poor, and the earned
Oh
income
yeah,
tax
far
takes
and
the
away.
cake. Yeah, it's not even close.
Hmm.
But even then, you're looking at the wealthy. They have multiple arguments, and even if they take an unreasonable position, you're gonna fight it and negotiate it. It's
Yep,
not
and
illegal.
get whatever that amount owed, get it
Mhm.
negotiated way down.
Yeah, or nobody really wants to go to tax court unless it's a novel case and we don't know the answer. Then sometimes you go to tax court, but otherwise the judge doesn't want. It's a tax court, not an actual place. It
No.
moves around. So when it comes to your town, you better have a legitimate beef, or they're going to be ticked
Yeah.
off at both the government and the taxpayer, saying, "What are
Hmm.
you guys doing here?" But if it's
Hmm.
illegitimate, hey, we don't know what the answer is. We need the judge to give us some direction. Then it's
Yeah.
never a bad thing. Sometimes you have to do that.
Hmm.
All right, so I feel like if I'm reading tea leaves with you, that there's some fear mongering out there,
There's a lot. There's a
and
lot, and
it doesn't have a basis in reality.
no, no, it doesn't. Um, yeah, and if you're delinquent on your taxes, just get them filed and you'll be fine. Or if you're evading taxes, yeah, maybe be a little bit worried. But again,
You're a crook if you're evading it. Let's just be
yeah,
real.
yeah, if you're,
Hope they catch you.
yeah,
Sorry.
if you're
From
involved in a
a
crime,
taxpayer that pays his taxes, even though I have plenty of strategy, I still pay a lot of taxes.
yeah,
You're screwing the rest of us. So please stop that. Like if
yeah,
you're an evader, just pay your dang
yeah,
taxes, or just file your taxes. Better yet, even if
yeah,
you can't pay them, there's a payment plan.
file.
There's arrangements. They can't squeeze you that hard. But if you don't file and you don't pay, the
They don't
penalties
like
are
that. Yeah, they
none.
don't love that.
They'll hit you with
So,
the stick. But if you file your taxes,
mhm,
even if you owe them, and say, "Hey, I owe this, but I can't pay this," like you can even bankrupt away taxes. Like people don't
yep,
realize the IRS isn't in the position. There's no debtor's jail. There's none of these things.
mhm,
Just don't lie to them and follow the rules. And then if you
yeah,
do deal with the IRS, don't ever talk to them,
Yeah.
Just get an attorney or an accountant to represent you. I know it's easier said than done, but trust me, you
Hmm.
never want to be sitting there getting free discovery, which is when they can ask you all those questions. Just you
Yeah.
never want
Never snitch on yourself.
to don't stitch on yourself.
Yeah.
I'm going to take that as a quote. Lauren
Hmm.
Robbins, don't
Yeah.
snitch on yourself. Yeah.
Yeah. If you're ever talking to someone in government authority, I do not recall. I need my attorney every time.
It's easy. And, all you're doing is because the accountant can say, I don't know, I'll look and find that out
Yeah.
and then review the law and everything else. When they ask you, what was this
Mhm.
for? And oh,
Hmm.
you don't have a receipt, do you? Or you start trying to talk your way around out of it. Yeah, don't do it.
Yeah.
Just
Don't do that.
don't
Call a
do that.
lawyer.
Easy peasy. All right,
Yeah.
Lauren, thanks for joining us. And it's it's an interesting topic, and there's a lot of
Hmm.
anxiety and fear around taxes, and hopefully this lets people feel a little bit better. So I just want to say thanks for joining us, and until next time.
Yeah. Absolutely. Thank you again for having me.